The wall of a Chinese courtyard, decorated with lanterns, can be seen behind the trees in the night. A dark-haired guy in a black jacket is sleeping at the table. Behind him, a woman in a red dress sits on the bed, her head covered with a red scarf. The guy opened his eyes, frowned, and asked himself in surprise, "Where am I?" He recalls that he is an ordinary office worker, working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. A few minutes ago, he was riding in a subway car, reading a novella called I Changed My Life by Achieving Immortality and Defying the Heavens. As the plot progresses, the main character of the novel was killed by the main antagonist, and the main character became so angry that he decided to kill the villain, dying with him, and his comrades decided to destroy the world. The guy didn't like where the plot was going. He looks displeased at the smartphone screen and throws it forcefully onto the subway floor, shouting angrily that this is a terrible plot twist. He couldn't understand how it was possible to ruin history like that. The moment the phone hits the floor, a purple glow begins to emanate from its screen. The surprised guy looks at the phone, covering his eyes with his hand from the bright glow that envelops his entire body. At the same moment he disappears. Remembering these events, the guy understood how he ended up here. He jumped up from the table and, overjoyed, thought that he was now a time traveler. Reborn is the main character of the short story he was reading. Suddenly, a small round white bird appears in the room and welcomes him to the Lanchuan continent. The bird says that she is his Xiao Jai system and that she is happy to serve him. The guy was glad that he got all the advantages of the main character. However, he thought that it was not like the original novel, since the system must be some beauty. Meanwhile, the bird continued to fly around him, calling him a master and saying that she had prepared an endless amount of materials and rare treasures. The guy thought irritably that apparently there was no way to get rid of this bird. He decided that he would not let that terrible story happen again. Meanwhile, the woman in red continued to stand silently behind him. The guy looked back at her, remembering that the main character of that short story got married at the very beginning of the story. He decided that he would just follow the plot and rushed to the girl and called her Yu, saying that it was time for them to celebrate their wedding and that he would take care of her. The main character lifted the red scarf on the girl's head and was shocked. He pulled off her scarf completely and the girl asked if it was normal to call a new wife by the name of another woman. She said her husband was so slutty. The guy was embarrassed and hesitatingly said that she had misunderstood him. He was shocked that the girl in front of him was not Lin Li. The guy pulled away from the girl and thought upset that this was some kind of scam and that he was just trash who didn't even have spiritual development. He remembered a scene from the novel with this girl. Her name is Jialing and she is the main villain of the novel who used Moyonglan. And after his death she started a rebellion, destroyed the Moyonglan dynasty and became the Scarlet Empress thanks to her inner strength. The girl flirtatiously called her husband and offered to drink tea. She handed him a glass of tea and said that it was about time. The guy grabbed his wife by the waist with one hand and grabbed the glass with the other hand. The main character guessed that Jialing added an aphrodisiac to the glass and wants to tie him up and force him to do dirty errands. The girl hugged him while the guy thought that she wanted to make him her toy, from which she would suck out all the remaining spiritual energy, after which he would die. He was trying to figure out what to do. Suddenly the guy remembered about the Xiao Jai system and opened its panels behind his wife. After scrolling through the panels with his wife's characteristics and his main mission, he found a panel with an exchange card. The system helped him use the card and exchange glasses with Jialing. The guy saw the liquid in his glass begin to bubble. Xiao Jai Bird informed him that the glass he was holding in his hand did not contain an aphrodisiac. He immediately drank the entire contents of the glass and told the girl that the wine was excellent and that she should try it too. Jialing began to drink from her glass with a grin, unaware of what had just happened. The main character, with a sly smile, thought that she would beg him and be exhausted with desire when the drink took effect. Suddenly the girl blushed and was surprised that for some reason she felt very hot. She turned to her husband irritably, trying to understand in her mind how this could happen. She was sure she had given him a glass of an aphrodisiac. Thinking that she had messed something up, the girl ran to the pool, which was located in the hall. Saying loudly, "To hell with everything," she decided to quickly get rid of this feeling. Jialing began to take off her clothes and climb into the water. She didn't understand why she wasn't feeling better and was surprised that the drug was so powerful. The main character watched this with pleasure from the side, thinking about how ideal this situation was. Jialing was thrashing about in the water, thinking that she couldn't control herself. The guy came to his senses and remembered that he had almost forgotten about his mission, because he did not even suspect that this girl could reveal such a side. He decided to deal with everything right now. The guy approached Jialing and invited her to enter into an agreement with him since she became his wife. The girl lay down in the pool, resting her head on the edge, and gently called him to her. She beckoned him with her finger, and he was delighted, thinking that she would not be able to resist him and would do whatever he told her. She suddenly frowned and shouted at her husband to stop behaving like that. Jialing grabbed him by the hem of his clothes and pulled him into the water, shouting for him to finally get in with her. Once underwater, he realized that she was still a villain who would not play by his rules. The guy decided to go ahead and kissed her. He had never experienced anything like this and was surprised at how soft her body was. He thought that he didn't want to just waste his first time. Suddenly, Jialing's body began to glow purple and she was surprised that this guy's yin was so strong. She broke into a satisfied smile, amazed that yin seemed to burst into her body, filling it. The girl did not understand how such strong energy could exist. She actually managed to break through to the 5th stage of development. She flew over the water, bathed in a purple glow, and her hair turned from white to a slightly purple color. The guy got angry, because his mission is to increase Jialing's reputation to 1. He thought that he would probably need at least 100 attempts. It turned out that a girl in a black hanfu was watching what was happening from around the corner. She decided to tell the Empress what happened. Late in the evening, the Empress's palace was enveloped in moonlight. A girl in black clothes with green hair entered the Empress's palace and told her that the 6th prince was the keeper of pure yin. She said that she personally saw how the guy exuded energy of incredible power, and this is why she risked her life and made her way to the Empress to tell everything. The Empress of the Moyang dynasty, Mujun Mingyu, was shocked that the prince would be so special and she felt like she had sold herself short. She remembered that the 6th prince's mother, concubine Bai, had fallen out of favor, and he had lost the opportunity to fight for the throne with the crown prince. However, she decided that the best option was to act decisively. The Empress gave the green-haired girl an order that she must spread the news that the 6th prince was the keeper of pure yin. The girl bowed and said that she would obey the order. Early in the morning, the sun rose and illuminated the chambers of the courtyard in which the main character slept. Jialing was sleeping next to him. He rose from the bed, surprised that the sun had already risen. The guy remembered that in the original story the hero he turned out to have problems with his legs and moved in a wheelchair. He was glad that he had avoided this and sat on the edge of the bed, putting on a white robe. He again remembered that his main mission at the moment was to increase the reputation of his wife and her favor towards him. Meanwhile, Jialing continued to sleep in the bed. During the day, the main character and his wife walk around the yard, accompanied by a maid in a brown dress. The main character wonders why Jialing's favor is growing so slowly, since he saved her life. The guy looks back at her and studies her characteristics through the system. He sees that the girl's favorability is -95. However, he began to understand the system better and realized that the system has many props that can be used not only on others. In the system, you can see that the guy is using the props to improve his level and increase his favor on himself. He thoughtfully examines all the details that the system offers and thinks that they can be used independently, but their list is still limited and some of them cannot be used. He suggests that the reason is that he did not complete his mission. Thinking about this, he fell behind his wife, so she called him, calling him husband. Jialing turned around slightly at him and thought that the guy probably wasn't particularly involved in his own development. She didn't understand what exactly she felt that day. The guy turned to his wife and said that he was already on his way. He wondered if she really was a villain because she had an eerie aura surrounding her. While catching up with his wife, the main character passed by a couple of a man and a woman. The man in blue hanfu and man bun hairstyle turned out to be the 2nd prince of the Moyang dynasty named Mo Yu. The 2nd prince recognized his 6th brother, turned around and apologized for not being able to attend his wedding. The main character said that his brother must have a lot to do, so everything is fine. He asked not to worry too much about it. Mo Yu said that he had heard rumors that the 6th prince's new wife was not that good, but he now sees that the rumors were lies. Jialing was shocked by these words and became very angry. She frowned and rudely asked Mo Yu what he just said. This made her so angry that she thought she wanted to kill the 2nd prince. Her eyes filled with rage, and the corruption in her stats increased to 35%. This behavior offended Mo Yu and he addressed the girl by shouting. The main character was afraid that the depravity indicator had increased and thought that he was lucky that his wife did not kill his brother right now. The 2nd prince almost swung his fist at the girl, but the main character grabbed his hand and asked his brother not to be angry with her. He approached his brother and said that this was not his wife and he had no right to evaluate her. The main character grabbed his wife's hand and led her away from her confused brother, saying that they had important things to do and were forced to leave. The girl, who was with the second prince and watched what was happening, blushed and looked at those leaving in surprise. Moyu was surprised because the sixth prince seemed like a completely different person to him. He thought that the rumors about his brother were true. The main character took his wife away and looked back at her. He wondered if she thought he was cool and decided to see how much her favor had increased. However, the girl looked at him with a contemptuous look, and her level of favor did not change at all. The guy was surprised that what happened had no effect on her. He did not understand what to do to increase his wife's favor. He held Xiaoling's hand and hurriedly walked through the courtyard, remembering what happened. He recalled the facial expressions of all the participants in the quarrel. The guy thought that he was overcome by a strange feeling. It seemed to him that someone was watching him. In the Empress's courtyard, in her main chambers, a girl in a pink dress and pink hair appeared. She is the daughter of Mujung Jing and her name is Mujung Tong. She bows slightly to Empress Mujun Mingyu, while a green-haired maidservant watches on the Empress's left. Mujung Tong holds a large blue-violet crystal in her hands and says that her father got this crystal especially for the Empress, that this crystal will be the best decoration for her. The Empress wanted to see how much the girl's skills had improved. Mujung Tong says that she heard rumors about the sixth prince and came to find out about everything. She asks the Empress if the news is true. The Empress laughs and says that the girl is already the fifth person in the last few days who has come to ask about this. Mujun Mingyu confirmed that the sixth prince is indeed the keeper of pure yin. Mujung Tong, overjoyed, says that she has been stuck in the practices for a long time and cannot make a breakthrough. She believes that she can achieve more success with minimal effort if the sixth prince can help her. She says that she does not pretend to anything and just wants to be a faithful servant of the Empress. The Empress looks at the girl appraisingly and thinks that Mujung Tong has a simple character, and in the future she can become one of the convenient assistants. In addition, the woman heard that there were some grievances between the Mujung clan and the Zhai clan. The woman decides to let the girl evolve in order to get rid of the annoying Xiaoling in the future. Mujun Mingyu says with a grin that he will help arrange the girl's marriage with the sixth prince, since Mujung Tong is so interested in this guy. The Empress said with a confident look that she needed to find a person who would convey her will, and report everything to Xiaoling. The next day, the main character and his wife came to the Empress's chambers. Mujung Tong was also standing in the hall, and the Empress was sitting on her throne. The main character greeted the Empress and remembered that the same situation happened in the original novel. He remembered that in the original, the Empress summoned Xiaoling alone and found an excuse to remove her from her role as chief wife. Moreover, the Empress cruelly humiliated her. He recalls a moment from the novel where an upset Xiaoling was seen being humiliated by a smug Mujun Mingyu. In the novella, this moment became the impetus for the fall of the dynasty. However, he looked at the Empress confidently and clenched his fist, thinking that this is his life now and he is no longer a useless character, and is standing right in the Empress's palace. He wants to save his life and take advantage of the chance by increasing the villainess's favor towards him. The guy notices Mujung Tong looking at him playfully and gets embarrassed. This look makes him feel like they want to eat him. The Empress stood up and asked Xiaoling if she was comfortable in the palace, because she had heard that people from the Zhai clan prefer to be in dark places, and she thought that the girl would not be able to get used to such a bright palace. Xiaoling frowned, not understanding what the woman was getting at. The Empress's face twisted into an evil grin, and she added mockingly that the girl was not exactly a ghost, but just a hybrid. The main character noticed how his wife became very angry and her depravity rose. He realized that something urgently needed to be done, took his wife by the hand and bowed slightly to the Empress. He told Mujun Mingyu that his wife was doing fine and there was nothing to worry about. He added that if the Empress was so worried, she could simply send someone to them, instead of straining her wife over such trifles. Xiaoling stopped being angry and was surprised that her husband stood up for her. The guy looked at her and noticed that the girl's depravity had returned to 30%, and her favor had increased by 5 units. The guy's action greatly angered the Empress, because she believes that a prince born from a simple concubine should not dare to give her orders. The Empress decided to say directly that she considered Mujung Tong a more suitable consort for the sixth prince and wanted his divorce from Xiaoling. However, Xiaoling frowned, took the guy's hand tightly and said that she did not want to divorce her husband until he asked for it. Xiaoling thought that if the guy divorces her, she will not leave anything from him. Mujun Mingyu got angry and pointed her finger at Xiaoling, shouting at her not to dare to contradict her. Then she pointed her finger at the sixth prince and ordered him to divorce and marry Mujung Tong. The Empress assured him that he would no longer need anything. Mujung Tong was embarrassed, because this was different from what she wanted, since she would have been satisfied with the role of a concubine. She turned to the Empress and stated that she considered this unacceptable. She offered to allow her and Jialing to honestly fight for the prince's heart. The girl reminded that the prince's wife should sing well, dance, embroider, and much more. She offered to organize a competition in these disciplines and fight with Jialing, although she was not confident in her abilities. However, if she wins, she hopes that the sixth prince will accept her as his wife. The Empress thought that the competition was a legitimate way to get rid of Jialing. She thought that Jialing would most likely be eliminated in the first 2 stages of the competition. The Empress was delighted and said that so be it. But if Jialing loses, then she will have to give way to her wife. The main character looked at the Empress warily, and then turned his gaze to Mu Jung-tung. He thought that the girl looked good, but he did not want to marry her, because 1 Jialing was enough for him, and he could not cope with 2. He was glad that he had an invincible system, so he would help Jialing win the competition. He approached Jialing and whispered to her that she should just accept the challenge since he had a way to help her win. Jialing became wary, not understanding what this guy was up to. The day of the competition has arrived. One of the halls of the courtyard shone in the rays of the sun. Inside the hall, Mu Jung-tung, Jialing, and her husband gathered around a long table. An elderly woman in a purple dress approached them, and behind her stood 2 maids holding trays of threads and fabrics. Jialing looked at her husband and whispered to him, asking if they could win. The guy waved it off with confidence and whispered that the girl could rely on him, since he had a way that would help her win. Meanwhile, the old lady took out an hourglass and announced that the first test was about embroidery skills, and the duration of the test was 2 hours. Girls are free to choose the theme of the embroidery themselves, since in the end it is not they who will evaluate the results. The maids placed trays in front of both girls, and the woman in purple hanfu said that the test begins now. Mu Jung-tung embroiders an intricate pattern with pink threads, while Jialing attempts to embroider a strange panda pattern. The time was already coming to an end, and Jialing was upset and did not understand what her husband named Mo Yaolan was thinking about, because he was not helping her at all. Suddenly, Mo Yaolan took out the flower embroidery skill card from the system and used it. The surprised girl pulled away from her embroidery and saw how the canvas began to glow. Meanwhile, the sand in the hourglass stopped pouring, and the elderly maid announced the end of the test, asking the girls to submit their work. She took Mu Jung-tung's work and said that she didn't expect anything less from her and that her work was great. The pink-haired girl's embroidery featured beautiful pink lotuses. The maid then said that it was time to see the work of the 6th princess. The Empress, who was watching the competition, grinned insidiously, thinking that Jialing was a savage and was born into a street family that probably taught her nothing. She was confident that Mu Jung-tung would win. The elderly maid was shocked by the quality of the 6th princess's work, exclaiming that it was a wonderful landscape and she had never seen such beautiful embroidery. The 6th prince smiled contentedly and was glad that everything worked out for him. Meanwhile, the maid was looking at the work of the 6th princess, which depicted a forest, a river, and mountains. The woman was amazed that the embroidery even included creatures playing in the forest. The 6th prince noted that such art is called abstraction. The maid was surprised at how good this girl was at embroidery and said that Jialing undoubtedly won. The Empress was angry and could not believe what was happening. Mu Jung-tung lowered her eyes and thought that she must win next time, while Jialing tried to understand how Mo Yaolan helped her win. The sun was starting to set and it was time for the second stage in the form of a dance competition. The Empress threatened the 6th princess with a grin, thinking that she was just lucky and that Mu Jung-tung would definitely win this time. The first to dance was Jialing, who changed into dance clothes and gracefully moved her arms and legs to perform the choreography. The girl moved deftly, holding a red shawl in her hands and fluttering it in the wind. Her husband watched with loving eyes, holding a card called choreography from the system in his hands, glad that the card played its role. The guy repeated that he loved Jialing. Mu Jung-tung performed afterwards, dressed in a beautiful purple dance outfit. The 6th prince was confident that his wife would win, because compared to this girl, she was superior. In front of the girls stood 3 judges in blue hanfu and a servant, who announced that the outcome of the competition would be decided by everyone present and asked everyone to write the name of the one they were voting for. Confident of his wife's victory, Mo Yaolan was shocked that all the judges voted for Mu Jung-tung. Jialing was also shocked by what was happening. The Empress grinned, because she knew that the judges were working for her and did not dare to contradict her. The 6th prince frowned, but was not ready to give up. He decided that he would prove everything to the Empress and win. Meanwhile, the girls looked at each other with displeasure and the guy with the Empress. The next day the 3rd competition was held. This time the competition was held on the street as the girls were tested in martial arts. Mo Yaolan handed the ring to his wife and asked her to take the ring with her and use it during the competition. Although the girl did not understand what it was, he assured her that she would understand everything when the time came. Jialing put the ring on her finger and began to examine it, but she was embarrassed because she could not even determine the class of the ring. Meanwhile, the second girl came onto the platform and they both picked up swords. As soon as the test began, Mujung jumped and swung at the sixth princess, shouting loudly. Jialing thrust her sword in front of her, successfully blocking the attack. The guards watching the competition were shocked that the princess was able to withstand Mujung's attack, because despite the fact that she is in the second kingdom, the difference in their strength is considerable. The second guard thought that the sixth prince had taken care of everything and gave the princess an item that could maintain the defense level and withstand Mujung's attacks. However, they were confident that Mujung would soon win. The guards admired the strength of the girls as they fought with swords. Mujung jumped back, dropping the sixth princess. Jialing stood up, wiping the blood from her mouth, and said that such strength was not surprising with the presence of the fifth realm. She thought that she could not win, but she did not want to accept defeat, because then she would ruin all her plans. Mujung swung her sword over her head and screamed that her opponent was finished. Jialing began to defend herself again when suddenly the ring began to glow brightly. Mujung couldn't believe her eyes and looked at what was happening in shock. The judges were also shocked to see the protective ring. They began to discuss that magic weapons were divided into magical, spiritual, and ancient depending on the class, and the power of this magic ring exceeded the first rank, which meant that it had a spiritual class. However, during the Moyonglan dynasty, there were only 3 such requisites. The empress looked at what was happening with confusion, asking where the girl got such a valuable treasure. She assumed that the clan had abandoned him. At this time, the girl raised her hand with a ring that glowed with a bright purple glow. She did not understand what was happening and why the energy of the ring was condensing. Noticing the opportunity to strike, Mujung immediately swung her sword. But it broke into 2 parts, and a shock wave of energy threw her away from her opponent. Jialing tried to stay on her feet as she felt very heavy from the energy absorbing her. She stood over the fallen Mujung and pointed at it with a hand with a ring that was glowing. Her eyes emitted an ominous red light and she said that she must win. The startled girl was horrified by how creepy the energy emanated from Jialing. The guard, who was the judge, intervened and raised his sword over Jialing's back, saying that the other girl could no longer fight and this must stop. The sixth princess turned around and blasted him away with a wave of purple energy. The other judges began to exclaim that the girl had gone crazy and her strength had reached rank 5. The frightened empress ordered to stop everything and take the girl to the palace. Mo Yaolan tensed because he realized what a mistake he had made. He realized that with Jialing's current cultivation base, it was not worth giving her a magic weapon of this rank, since if her mind was completely absorbed, then she would turn into a killing machine. He wondered why the system gave him such dangerous equipment. He mentally asked the system how long the recovery card would last, and took out a golden core period card that lasted for a day. The system reported that since Jialing's favor had increased, her level had been raised to rank 5 for only 10 seconds, and Jialing's energy fluctuations were currently equal to rank 3, so Mo Yaolan would be able to hold her. The guy thanked the system for the reminder, not thinking that it was so useful. He took out the card in front of him and raised it above his head, using it. His eyes and body began to glow, and his hair began to float. Spiritual power filled his body and he became stronger. He thought about how cool it felt. Jialing turned around, trying to figure out who was the source of such powerful energy, when suddenly her husband slapped her in the face. He stabbed her in the stomach, and then knocked her out with a blow to the neck. He hugged her limp body with his other arm, declaring that he was done with her. The judges watched in bewilderment, not understanding when the sixth prince became so strong, not believing that there was any way that could cultivate yin purity. One of the judges said that perhaps the empress had been lying to them all this time. Mo Yaolan took his wife in his arms and looked at the empress with a cold gaze and said that Jialing won the competition, so she has no right to find fault with the princess. That even if she is from a different race, he is not going to allow her to be hurt. He thought that in the original novel, Jialing was a villain and decided to win her over in order to survive. Frowning, the empress agreed with the prince, adding that she was tired and ordered everyone to disperse. She got up and started to leave. The empress did not expect the sixth prince to help his wife and decided to come up with something else. Mujung walked behind the main character, watching him with a dissatisfied look. Jialing and Mo Yaolan returned to their chambers, and the wife, who had already woken up, was sitting at the table on which there were treats. She frowned and began asking her husband about what happened during the competition and why she didn't remember anything. She added that her memories end at the ring her husband gave her. She didn't understand where he got such a thing from and how many more secrets he kept from her. Mo Yaolan was confused and laughed embarrassedly, saying that his wife was thinking too much of herself, because he just found this thing in a cave when he was traveling a few years ago. He smiled and said that he just wanted his wife to always be there. He put his arms around her and asked if she could allow him to satisfy her. The girl blushed, but immediately pushed him away, telling him not to touch her, but her favor increased by 5 units. The guy was glad that this gesture helped him increase his wife's favor. The system showed him that his cultivation level had also increased. He decided that as his wife's favor increased, so did his cultivation base, and that he should aim to strengthen his favor. However, the reload time of the ability takes a whole day, which is not particularly good. Jialing stood up and said that she was going to take a bath. Mo Yaolan agreed, and when his wife left, he asked the system what the origin of the ring he was giving her was. The system reported that this exquisite ring is a magical weapon that protects the body, and has the level of spiritual treasure, since an evil demon devouring souls was sealed in this ring. All owners of this ring died, and the legend says that when you put on the ring, you can gain enormous power, but in return you will lose your mind. Despite its sinister history, many people want to own it. However, the last owner lost this ring. Mo Yaolan was extremely shocked by this story. Meanwhile, Jialing lay in the bathtub with her eyes closed as a strange purple energy emanated from her forehead. In the inner space of the Sea of Consciousness, a huge 9-tailed fox appeared before the girl. She felt the familiar powerful feeling of depression in him. The girl asked the fox what happened to her memories of the demon clan. The fox mentioned the ring, saying that he would like to make a deal with her, plunging his soul into the sea of knowledge. After 30 minutes, the girl returned to her husband and sat on the bed. Mo Yaolan wanted to start talking about the ring, but Jialing interrupted him, saying that she accidentally found out something about it, and asked if her husband would mind. The guy was embarrassed, saying he didn't mind, thinking that he couldn't object to the whims of the main villain of the story, because he was just a pathetic person. She rose from the bed and stroked his cheek, asking if her husband would like to take her to bed. Mo Yaolan was embarrassed, but agreed and looked at her intently. The girl thought that the 9-tailed fox promised to share energy with her if she gave him a particle of pure yin, and when the fox restored its soul, he would teach her new techniques. She sat on her husband's lap and told him to hold on as long as possible, thinking that she could no longer retreat, because if she received the legacy of the great demon, she would greatly increase her abilities. She only needs to absorb some yin energy. He threw her onto the bed and pressed her on top, and Jialing, embarrassed, was surprised at the pressure of her husband, who decided to enjoy his wife. Morning came and Mo Yaolan sat tired in his bed, thinking about how he almost died that night. Suddenly a strange feeling enveloped him and the system unlocked some card. He looked out the window and saw a strange girl. The guy wondered if she was not subordinate to the Empress, and remembered that the legend says that a person may be uneducated, but have excellent abilities. He didn't understand what this girl was doing here and was shocked that she resembled the ghost of the Empress. The girl was shrouded in blue energy, dressed in a dress with a robe and wore a high ponytail. Suddenly, a notification from the system appeared in front of the guy that a hidden mission had been activated. At the end of this mission, he will be able to increase Jialing's favor to 50 units, and will also receive a recovery card as a reward and reduce the recovery time to half, increasing the duration of the action to 15 seconds. He grabbed his head, glad that he could improve his abilities, but then thought that he could not allow Jialing's favor to fall, because otherwise he would end. He went out into the courtyard and went into the neighboring building, where the mysterious woman was. Opening the door slightly, he saw the same girl, dressed in a green dress and holding a purple ball in her hands. She was scared, not expecting someone to come in. Mo Yaolan slightly lowered the hem of his clothes, asking the girl what she forgot in his room. His plans were finally coming to fruition. The girl placed the glass ball on the pillow on the table and frowned, her favor at 0. Mo Yaolan thought that it would be hard with her, and began to remember how in a past life he studied a book, sitting at the computer, about how a girl would like him. The book contained 100 ways to properly court a girl and win her trust, as well as advice to spend 5 million on courtship. He asked the girl if she was Yun Yao, who is always near the Empress, and what she forgot here. Yun Yao said that she was just following the orders of the Empress, so the 6th prince had nothing to worry about. Besides, the prince was already married. She did not understand why he came to this room. The guy approached her and put his hand on her shoulder. The girl was embarrassed, telling him to remove his hand. Mo Yaolan said that he was forced to marry Xiaoling, and that it is difficult for him to get along with her because she is very cold-blooded and cruel in nature, and Yun Yao is not at all like that and is very smart and reasonable. The girl blushed even more, and he looked at her appraisingly. Yun Yao pushed him away with her hand, saying that the sixth prince should not say that because she is older than him. However, her favor increased to 40 units. Mo Yaolan continued to flirt with her and said that Miss Yun Yao was beautiful, and age would not be a problem. The Empress always kept her close to her, constantly giving her difficult tasks. He believed that she had a hard time and invited her to trust and become his princess. The embarrassed girl was taken aback, asking the prince if he was serious in his intentions, and thought that this had never been offered to her. He confirmed his intentions, and the girl's favor increased to 80 units, and Yun Yao herself burned with embarrassment. The system announced that the mission had been successfully completed and presented the sixth prince with the promised rewards. He looked at the cards he received and was surprised that it turned out to be too easy. Suddenly, a dissatisfied Xiaoling entered the room, asking what these two were doing here. Yun Yao asked the princess again and invited Mo Yaolan to tell about it himself, placing her hand on his shoulder. The guy hid behind his wife, pretended to be a fool, and said that Yun Yao had jumped to conclusions about his relationship with his wife, although he just wanted to talk to her, and Yun Yao attacked him. Yun Yao became angry, shouting that Mo Yaolan had deceived her, and that she would teach him a lesson. She took out her staff and began to cast some spell. The guy hid behind Xiaoling in fear, grabbed her around the waist, and shouted for her to help him. He remembered that his recovery card had not yet been activated and he needed to wait a little longer, so he could only rely on Xiaoling. His wife frowned and told him to behave himself and remove his hands. She took out her sword and glared at Yun Yao. The guy thought that this girl was weaker than Xiaoling, so there was nothing to worry about. Xiaoling ran up and hit the girl with her sword so that she was speechless. Xiaoling stood in a smug pose, throwing her sword over her shoulder, and asked Yun Yao that she really thought that she could take away her man, because it was a waste of time, and it would be easier to open her stomach and take away her strength. However, her husband intervened, saying that this should not be done since Yun Yao is an important servant of the Empress, and if she is killed, the Empress will have doubts about them, so it is better to come up with another plan. Meanwhile, Yun Yao leaned on her staff and stood up deftly, shouting that she would show them her inner strength. She was enveloped in a black and blue glow, and the girl summoned the ghost of a fox woman. Xiaoling realized that the ghost girl possessed a golden core cultivation base. The ghost's owner ordered him to kill the sixth princess, and the ghost rushed towards her. Mo Yaolan ran to his wife, shouting to her to be careful. The ghost grabbed Xiaoling by the throat and began to choke him. The girl got angry and tried to remove his hand, but realized that she could not move, and was afraid that she would have to meet her death here. Yun Yao watched with a smirk and an evil smile at what was happening, threatening the girl with her finger and laughing at her that she could not do anything. She mockingly said that she felt sorry for killing the sixth princess like that, but she couldn't help herself. Meanwhile, the ghost lifted Xiaoling with his hand on his neck and continued to strangle him. Mo Yaolan looked at what was happening warily and was angry that he could not do anything due to the fact that his cultivation base was not yet active. However, he decided that he could at least increase his wife's powers. He took out a cultivation card called Fusion Realm Peak from the system, thinking that in addition to being able to use this card on himself, he could cast it on others. Suddenly, his wife was enveloped in a purple light and she began to float, escaping from the hands of the ghost. Yun Yao and the summoned spirit could not understand what was happening and were shocked. Xiaoling also did not understand what was happening to her and noticed that she was overwhelmed with energy. She felt like she was making a breakthrough. Yun Yao, frightened by what was happening, ordered the ghost to quickly kill the girl and waved her staff. The ghost flew up and swung his hand at the sixth princess, and she waved her hand and repelled the attack. Yun Yao fell to the floor from such force, and her ghost fell on her. Xiaoling flew up to the fallen girl and aimed her hand at her. She felt that the power of the golden core was flowing within her, but she did not understand how she could obtain it. However, she was sure that now that girl was no longer a threat to her. But the sixth princess did not kill the girl, but only took her by the hair. While Yun Yao screamed, not understanding what was happening, and asked to let her go, Xiaoling used the ring on her hand to use the unique ability of her demon clan. This ability allows her to absorb the spiritual power of other people who are a level below her. As her husband watched this, he understood why so much attention was being focused on his wife's clan, because this technique was so amazing. His wife let the girl go and said that she had taken away her spiritual power, so if she dared to tell the Empress anything, she would finish her off. Yun Yao lay on the floor in shock, her eyes watering. She said that she would not tell anything, because due to her carelessness she had lost all her strength. The angry sixth princess ordered the girl to leave. The girl obeyed the order and ran out of the room as quickly as possible. The husband and wife noticed that the ghost of the fox girl had not disappeared and continued to sit scared on the floor. Mo Yaolan said that although the connection between the ghost and this girl was destroyed, he was sorry to destroy her. The guy took the card out of the system and used it. At the same moment, the ghost turned into a human, and now it was a girl with fox ears and a tail and a short blue dress. She began to look at her new human body, saying that it gave her a pleasant feeling of nostalgia. The guy said that he used a secret technique that gave the girl a body, and said that he would now call her Tongue-er. The girl bowed to her new owner and said that she was grateful for his kindness. She added that she would never betray her owner, because if she did this, her soul would immediately burn in hellish flames. She looked at the guy and thought that although she could not sense the master's spiritual power, the fact that his power could change the physical body meant that Mo Yaolan was truly a great person, and she should serve him well. Mo Yaolan turned to his wife and told her that she could now channel Tongue-er. His wife looked at him intently and thought that some spiritual treasure was needed to restore the physical body. Moreover, she managed to break through to the golden core period in just an instant, which amazed her. This struck her so much that her favorability increased to -75. She thanked her husband for his help and began to leave. Mo Yaolan was glad that his wife's favor had increased, and mentally thanked the Empress for the successful circumstances. Meanwhile, in the chambers of the current head of the Qingyu Lingyun clan named Mo Nyan, the clan chief sat at a large table in the red room with his hands on the table. Mo Nyan is an elderly man with a long beard and gray hair, wearing a black and white hanfu with a golden belt. The clan chief approached Ling Lai, who is a follower of the Qingyu Lingyun clan, and said that the Empress had summoned him to the palace to guide the prince. He added that this is a very important task that cannot be spoiled. The young man named Ling Lai, who is also the main character in the original novel, folded his hands in front of him, showing respect to the other person, and said that he would obey his order. Time passed and the life of Mo Yaolan and his wife became calmer. The main character sat on the open veranda, stroking the dog, rejoicing that, with the exception of the Mujung family, not a single girl bothered him. He remembered Mujung Tongue crying and asking him for something, thinking that he needs to cultivate his wife's favor now, as this will allow him to unlock more of the necessary cards. He looks through the active missions in his system, and between the tasks of walking the dog every day and communicating with the princes, a new task appeared, the essence of which was to help Jialing get out of trouble. He looked at this task in surprise, not understanding what it meant, when suddenly a servant came running to him, shouting that something bad had happened. The servant stated that the princess had gotten into a fight, which left the sixth prince in shock. He asked how this could happen, and the servant explained that he did not know the details, but he knew that the princess was locked with someone in the garden and no one was allowed to leave. He said that he had no other choice, so he had to turn to the prince. Mo Yaolan waved his hand and ordered a horse to be prepared for him so that he could go to the rescue. He thought he wasn't surprised by the side mission, remembering that the original novel had a similar scene in the garden. At this time, in Shang Garden, Jialing was standing on the path near a tree along with a girl in a pink dress and long brown hair. Opposite them stood a stately man in a blue hanfu and a girl in a blue dress. To the left of them stood a man in a blue robe, and to the right a woman. The girl in the blue dress was upset and held the slap mark on her face with her hand. She cried and asked her brother and the second prince to do something. Her brother turned to her, telling her not to cry, because since he and the second prince were here, they must restore justice. Second Prince Mo Yu looked at the sixth princess with an evil grin, and, covering himself with a fan, said that they were one family, so it was easier for her to admit the mistake by bowing her head. He suggested that Jialing solve the problem in this way. At the same moment, his wife became angry and shouted that this could not be done, because Jialing not only beat her, but also stole her spiritual beads. The girl said that she couldn't just leave everything. The girl in the pink dress got angry and intervened in the argument, asking the second princess not to lie, because Jialing only found beads in the grass. Jialing put her hand in front of the girl, interrupting her, and said that apparently the second prince was not able to think. The girl said that the spiritual beads fell into the grass and she only wanted to return them, and heard her husband's humiliation in response. She couldn't help but slap back at something like that. These words angered the second prince, and the girls who stood behind him sarcastically added that everyone knows that the sixth prince is useless because he cannot cultivate, so even though he is a prince, he is nothing. The girls continued to scoff and said that Xialing was a poor thing, because she had to marry such a worthless man, and also that there were big problems in her clan. Mo Yu said with an evil grin that Xialing didn't seem to understand where she belonged. Xialing was very angry and was ready to use the ring with the power of the nine-tailed fox, and the spirit of this fox appeared behind her in the guise of a girl, inviting her to lend her power again so that the girl could deal with these people. At that moment, Mo Yaolan arrived in the garden, and the girl in the pink dress shouted to him, calling him brother. She pulled him by the hem of his clothes, frowned and pointed at the quarreling people, saying that girl was a real witch, and they wanted to intimidate her. However, at first the sixth prince did not recognize her and asked who she was. The girl burst into tears and turned to her brother, surprised that he did not remember her. Mo Yaolan finally remembered her after realizing that she was his cousin named Huiyang Wenchen, who in the original novella became a loyal fan of Xialing after meeting her. Mo Yaolan presented an image of his sister in a red dress when she was very little, and said that she had grown a lot since the last time they met. The guy turned to his wife and saw her eyes burning with anger and her depravity increased to 45%, shocked at how quickly her depravity was growing. He decided that the first thing he needed to do was help her, and turned to his wife, who calmed down from her husband's voice. He extended his hand to her and called her to follow him. Xialing looked at her husband, surprised by his arrival, and asked why he was here. Mo Yaolan took her hand, hugged her and pulled her towards him, saying that his wife was in trouble, so he could not stay away. His wife blushed and was surprised at how much he cared for her, while in the background his cousin blushed with embarrassment. Mo Yu coughed in displeasure, trying to attract attention. He smiles evilly and says that the sixth prince apparently never learned etiquette since he doesn't know how to greet his elders correctly. In response to this, the sixth prince said with a grin that he could not understand where this disgusting smell was coming from. But now he realized that it was his brother who sprayed drool everywhere. Mo Yu literally lit up with rage, shouting what Mo Yaolan was hinting at. The second man intervened to greet the sixth prince, and behind him stood his sister and the second prince's wife. The main character looked at him and recognized him as Chu Yang, and the girl behind him was named Chu Zhenjian. The main character recalled that in the original story, when Mo Yaolan was only 12 years old, his mother fell ill and went crazy, losing the favor of the emperor, and one snowy day she died. He recalled his sick mother lying on the bed, and how he was teased because Mo Yaolan did not have a cultivation base, and Chu Zhenjian, along with Chu Yang and Mo Yu, were the first to bully him. He remembered the time when they took his ball and then kicked him, humiliating him and telling him that he didn't even have a cultivation base. They looked at him smugly, and Chu Yang said with a grin that Mo Yaolan could not be called a prince, and Chu Yang would never become like him. Chu Zhenjian looked at Mo Yaolan angrily and said that fortunately his mother died, so all marriage proposals for him were cancelled. She was glad that she would not have to marry someone like him. Mo Yaolan thinks about all this and realizes that if he had not been picked up, he would have died long ago. Smiling, he said that he was informed that someone wanted to harm his wife, so he decided to visit here. The dissatisfied Chu Zhenjian pointed her finger at him and asked who he was referring to, and the guy replied that to those who arise the most, which made his sister laugh, and the second princess got angry and said that her grandfather was the 8th most important in the dynasty, and he was just a nobody. She added that his wife not only robbed her but also dared to slap her. The girl said that she could not leave such behavior unpunished. Mo Yaolan got angry and said that they had no evidence, and Tunger appeared behind him. He prepared to snap his fingers and said that the princess still shouldn't bother insulting people, so today he was forced to teach her a lesson. Given the command to act, Tunger glowed with a purple light and took off, ready to attack. Chu Zhenjian was scared and asked how dare he do this, and at that moment, Tunger's hand appeared through the portal in front of her face. Mo Yaolan said that there was nothing wrong with this and the kitsune slapped the second princess. Chu Zhenjian fell and lost consciousness, which makes her brother very angry. He takes out his sword and shouts that he will kill Mo Yaolan, calling on the Xuanzi blade intention technique, jumping and swinging to strike. Chu Yang almost hits the sixth prince with his sword, screaming for him to die, when suddenly Tunger effortlessly grabs him by the blade of his sword with one hand, asking if he has the strength to fight. She flies above him, planting her foot in his face and commanding him to surrender. Chu Yang finds himself as if under hypnosis, amazed at the strange fighting technique, and his head begins to spin. The guy falls to his knees in front of the kitsune, And the second prince, who was watching this, understands that this kitsune has a golden core cultivation base and he is not her opponent. He is shocked and does not understand what abilities Mo Yaolan has that he can contain such power. Tunger charged her hand with energy for the final blow, but the stunned guy stammered and asked for mercy. Mo Yaolan asked Mo Yu if he would like to participate, but he refused, saying that the sixth prince would not be able to handle the consequences, and in fact, he had already figured out all of the sixth prince's techniques, which he was very happy about. Mo Yaolan said that since his brother was presenting himself as a good person, then why not settle things personally? The guy waves goodbye and his wife runs up to him. He says that in any case, everything will be returned to them soon, but for now he will go home. Mo Yu gets angry at these words and shouts Mo Yaolan's name, and then goes to Chu Yong and lifts him up, asking if he is okay. Chu Yong's face twists in pain, but he says everything is fine. Suddenly disgust appears on his face and he asks what these strange sounds are, looking in front of him and seeing the dog next to him going to the toilet. His eyes fill with rage and he shouts the name Mo Yaolan so loudly that Mo Yaolan, his wife and sister hear it in the cart and are perplexed. The massive building of the Emperor's palace was illuminated by sunlight from above. An irritated Mo Yaolan walks through the courtyard near the palace, swearing at something. He remembers how the Empress humiliates him and angrily asks how he dared to insult his family to the whole court. She also said that she forbids him to leave her court. Remembering this, Mo Yaolan's face twists with irritation. He continues to walk, insulting the Empress, thinking that she still needs to try to restrain him. Meanwhile, a man began to follow him, whose steps the sixth prince heard and, turning around, recognized him as the true protagonist of the original Ling Lai novel. The guy was surprised, not understanding why Ling Lai was here, and began to examine him, remembering that in the original story, Ling Lai was close to the second prince and was a key figure in all the incidents. He suggested that thanks to Ling Lai, he could avoid the original ending. Mo Yaolan tried to study the guy's characteristics in the system, but saw that everything was blocked. He realized that in front of him was truly the main character, since it would not even be possible to use attributes on him. Deciding not to waste the moment, Mo Yaolan walked closer to Ling Lai and greeted him, asking if he had any free time. Ling Lai notices the sixth prince and bows to him, greeting him and clarifying that he was lucky enough to take the position of mentor for the second prince. Mo Yaolan says that it must have taken him a long time to get to the palace, and offers to stay in its chambers for a few days. Ling Lai becomes embarrassed and refuses the sixth prince, saying that it is a great honor for him. Mo Yaolan also feels awkward, because he remembered that in the original story, his character did not stand out at all. Noticing the awkward situation, Ling Lai clarifies that he cannot because he is forced to escort the second prince to the official, so he cannot relax. Mo Yaolan, shocked by the news about the official, remembers his wife, not understanding how he could forget it. Meanwhile, in the sixth prince's chambers, Jai Ling sat with her legs crossed and bent on the bed and her hands on her knees. The spirit of the nine-tailed kitsune hovered over her, stroking her head, and said that she would now teach her a technique called Spiritual Fox Sutra, and added that the extent to which she could use this technique would depend on her abilities. The spirit frowned and thought that it was worth helping Jai Ling fully comprehend the Spiritual Fox Sutra, since without the help of the sixth prince she obviously would not have reached such heights. The kitsune's spirit stupidly looked down at the girl, who closed her eyes and blushed, as she understood that the key to sutra was the method of paired cultivation. The kitsune began to glow with purple energy and touched Jai Ling's lower abdomen with her hand. The girl jumped up and blushed even more, not understanding what was happening to her, and her body began to glow with purple energy. The spirit looked at the fallen, blushing girl and said that this was not enough and it was time to show her the true bliss of this world by taking her hand. Kitsune touched Jai Ling's leg, who was embarrassed and asked not to touch her. The kitsune hovered over the girl and pinned her to the floor, asking her to let her borrow the girl's body. Meanwhile, Mo Yaolan continues to walking along the wall under the canopy of trees. He considers perhaps taking his wife out to dinner and returns to his chambers, telling his wife that he has returned. He notices that his wife is standing in the middle of the hall in a nightgown and glowing with a purple glow. She turns her reddened face towards him, rejoicing at his arrival. Mo Yaolan tenses up and his face becomes very serious, because he realizes that he cannot move. Jai Ling pushes her husband to the floor and pins him with her body on top. Biting his ear, he begins to glow with a purple light and realizes that his wife is absorbing his yin energy. From the energy overwhelming her body, the girl bends back and opens her mouth. After that, he sat down on the floor, and Xiaoling sat with her back to him between his legs and lay down on him, stroking his head. Mo Yaolan realized that this was not his wife and asked if this was a kitsune. The girl said that he was quick-witted, and she simply borrowed the mistress's body in order to fully absorb the power, because it would be better for Xiaoling herself. She kneels in front of him and looks at him over her shoulder, telling the guy not to hesitate and get started. The next day, Xiaoling was practicing with the sword in the courtyard. She raised the sword, perfecting the movements. Her husband watches this from the side with tongue and thinks that his wife should not have any memories of last night, since he knocked her out almost immediately. He decided that he needed to force the kitsune to leave his wife's body. Mo Yaolan addresses Tongue, praising her for what a good teacher she is. Tongue blushes and is happy that her master decided to praise her. The guy opened the characteristics of the system, remembering the power he felt from the Ling Lai cultivation base, which had already almost entered the Yuanying realm stage, which is the 6th stage of cultivation after laying the foundations, activation, fusion, excitement and golden core, followed by the Yuanying realm, out-of-body, absorption, emptiness, Mahayana and distress. Mo Yaolan thinks about this, touching his hair and realizing that in 5 days the palace of the underworld will open. He remembers a large ominous building with an imposing statue of a praying man with various decorations, calling it the Palace of the Underworld, which is the place where the demon clan is sealed. This place is constantly guarded by the Qingwu Lingyan clan and is only opened once every 20 years for 7 days so that cultivators can gain strength there. He remembers caves with various monsters that live there, and that becomes stronger as he descends to the lower floors. The palace has only 3 floors and, according to legend, if someone can reach the very depths, they will be able to receive the highest inheritance of the Qingwu Lingyan clan, which Mo Yaolan presented as a chest filled with rich treasures. However, he knew that over the past 400 years no one had managed to reach the top floor. He ponders the possibility of something while his wife continues to practice fencing in the background, but decides to deal with it later. He waves his hand and turns to his wife, telling her to pack her things, because they are going on a journey, thinking that as long as he is here, history will change. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Palace, Empress Mujin Mingyu sits in a large chair in her chamber, drinking from a mug. She thinks dissatisfiedly that Yun Yao turned out to be too stupid, because not everything is so simple. The Empress is disappointed that the girl could not get close to Mo Yaolan, but fortunately, the palace asked Ling Lai to help the second prince, so he will most likely be able to obtain the status of crown prince after the trip. 5 days later, Mo Yaolan, along with Tongue and Xiaoling, arrived at the entrance to the Netherworld Palace. They looked at the huge building in front of them, with 3 men standing at the entrance. Mo Yaolan was surprised that this palace was the palace of the underworld. He was determined to improve his body as much as possible, because such an opportunity comes only once in a lifetime. The men at the entrance noticed the arrival of the trio and turned their attention to the girls, talking among themselves that perhaps these 2 girls are the descendants of the demon clan, because their energy makes the blood stop. But another man said that he doubts it, because the descendants of the demon clan never will have the courage to go to such a place. Hearing this, Xiaoling shook with anger and her face showed extreme indignation. Mo Yaolan notices this and does not understand what is happening and what is happening to the girl's face. He took his wife by the hand and led her further into the building, turning to the men and saying that his wife and retinue were with him, so they did not dare speak so badly about them. One of the men looked closely at Mo Yaolan, recognizing him as the son of a concubine who had fallen out of favor. He knew that Mo Yaolan had no cultivation ability since birth, and did not understand what he hoped for. He said that he did not know that these girls came with the 6th prince, and warned the guy that the underworld palace was too dangerous and he should think about whether he really wanted to go there. Frowning, the 6th prince replied that it was none of their business, since he had people who could protect him. There were already a lot of people inside the Netherworld Palace, which Mo Yaolan noticed, saying that no one wants to miss an opportunity that comes once every 20 years. A group of guards turned around and looked at Mo Yaolan with irritation. The guy walked further and saw a trading shop, next to which several people in raincoats stood and looked at the blue bottles on the counter. He was surprised that they were trading in this place and that they were selling bottles of gold, of which there were as many as 20 pieces. Xiaoling sped up, saying that there were too many people here and that it was worth going further, where there was more energy, and grabbed her husband's hand. She quickly walked forward, dragging her husband by the hand, who asked her to wait, and Tongue flew behind them. Walking deeper into the palace, they noticed that 2 people were already sitting on the floor and engaged in cultivation. They were surrounded by a blue glow and guarded by a crowd of guards, and a man and a woman were watching all this. They turned out to be Ling Lai and his wife Shiyu with white hair and a white and blue dress. Ling Lai turns to the second prince and says that there is too much human energy in this place, so the monsters will not bother him, so this place is perfect for cultivation. He added that he had already taught the prince all the basics, so if he had no questions, he would like to go further. Mo Yu said that Ling Lai can go and asked him to be careful, as it is quite dangerous further. Ling Lai and his wife bowed to the prince, thanking him for his concern. Meanwhile, on the first floor of the Netherworld Palace, Jai Ling sat in a cultivation position and concentrated, and was enveloped in a red glow. She was watched by her husband and Tunger standing behind her. Mo Yaolan yawned and thought that although he came to control his wife and monitor her self-control, it seems that everything is fine so far, so he is too bored here, because there is no entertainment here. He closed his eyes and remembered how in a previous life he played his favorite game on the phone and was upset that he did not get what he wanted there. The guy was glad that he would no longer have to spend money on the game, but he was sad that he would no longer be able to go there. He waved to his wife and told her to continue studying while he went for a walk. He stood up and looked around the cave, thinking he could at least enjoy the show, and saw that the system had given him a side mission. The essence of the side mission is to humiliate Chu Yong's relative, and as a reward for this he will receive a large number of pills. He noticed Chu Yong and his sister Chu Zhenjian going deeper into the dungeon. Sister Chu Yong asked her brother if they would really go that far. Mo Yaolan, seeing the couple, immediately understood why the mission appeared. Chu Zhenjian was unhappy that they were leaving the second prince and asked her brother why they couldn't stay there, because it was safer next to him. To which her brother replied that the second prince was too cautious and also took too many guards with him, so he definitely wouldn't go deeper. He asked his sister if she didn't want to improve her cultivation base quickly. His sister agreed with him and he walked on, stepping over a pile of stones, when suddenly they both noticed that someone was running in front of them. They were shocked to see the sixth prince come up to them and say that he didn't expect to meet them so soon. Chu Yong grinned and asked why his wife and his kitsune were not with the sixth prince, because in his position he did not belong here. Mo Yaolan scratched his ear and asked in surprise who told his brother that he could not cultivate, and then thought that he would soon show his abilities and that fortunately he remembered the details of the original plot. In the original novella, there were 3 paths to the second floor, 2 of which lead through monsters, and the third is too dark and inaccessible, so no one knows about it, but it is the shortest and there are no monsters there. He thought that if Chu Yong and Chu Zhenjian were on the verge of death, they would definitely run to the road where there were many monsters. Suddenly, from the depths of the cave, the roar of a monster was heard, which frightened the brother and sister, but Mo Yaolan was calm. The shocked girl screamed, asking what that sound was, when suddenly a huge monster resembling a dragon approached them and growled, standing on its hind legs. Chu Yong, frightened, shouted that this monster is very strong and judging by its energy, it must have a realm of excitement. The guy grabbed his sister by the hand and began to run, telling his sister that they could not cope with this monster and it was time for them to leave. Mo Yaolan was not afraid and grinned and asked those running away that they really couldn't cope with him. Brother and sister turned around and the brother shouted that these conversations are useless and he should deal with him himself since he is so cool, and his sister added that if Mo Yaolan does not leave, he will definitely die here. But Mo Yaolan just smiled at them, and behind him the monster had already opened its mouth and was ready to grab him. Mo Yaolan thought that this monster was not his opponent, because he was already in his golden core period. He concentrated and put his hand forward, and his body began to glow with golden energy. Raising his hand, he concentrated the energy in his palm and directed it at the monster, which was immediately struck by it and caught fire. Mo Yaolan waved his hand and ended the fight. Chu Yong and Chu Zhenjian were shocked by what they saw, and the sixth prince thought with a smug look that he didn't have to pacify this monster, but just wanted to humiliate the two. Chu Yong was surprised at how capable the sixth prince was and said that he didn't think that with such a physique he would have enough strength to fight. And Mo Yaolan only said that there are a lot more monsters here than they think, and pointed to the monsters growling nearby. He added that most likely these monsters sensed that a fierce battle was going on somewhere nearby, and asked with a grin if they could replenish the stomachs of the monsters. The brother and sister were offended by this and became even more angry, and the sixth prince only smiled contentedly. Chu Yong whispered to his sister that she was supposed to marry the sixth prince, and he remembers that Mo Yaolan once admired her. He suggested that she win his favor so that he would help them deal with the monsters, and once it was all over, they would humiliate the 6th prince in front of the 2nd prince. Chu Zhenjian thought with a grin, remembering that Mo Yaolan had been in love with her since childhood. So you can try, because if you approach her, he will immediately become obedient, despite the fact that he is already married. The sister told her brother with confidence that he could rely on her. The girl approached the 6th prince and called him, saying that she did not think that he would hide such strength, and smiled tenderly at him. Mo Yaolan was pleased and said that he liked the girl's surprised look. She continued and said that they had a marriage contract before, and although they couldn't get married now, the 6th prince could help her get out of difficulties. Mo Yaolan was surprised, asking if he could forget the words she said a couple of days ago. Chu Zhenjian put her hand to her chest and continued to convince the 6th prince, saying that she was just angry when she found out that he was married, which is why she got angry. She asked him not to think about it, but the guy told her to stop, because nothing could happen between them. This angered the girl and she, pointing at Mo Yaolan, shouted at him that he was taking on too much and that he shouldn't pretend to be someone he didn't know. Mo Yaolan and the brother and sister turned around, seeing a crowd of monsters behind them. A huge monstrous centipede, a dragon and a large growling wolf rushed towards them, which scared Chu Yang and Chu Zhenjian, and they shouted that the monsters were already close and this was the end. The 6th prince only said with a grin that they should only worry about themselves, and added that most of the local monsters are females who like to feed on the lower part of male flesh, because by doing so they strengthen their demonic energy. He jumped back from the monsters, and Chu Yang fell to the ground in fear, not understanding what the 6th prince was talking about and covering everything below his waist with his hands. The 6th prince waved to them and wished them luck, saying that he still had unfinished business. He knew that the monsters would not touch him because his rank was too high for them, so he decided to leave quickly. The girl screamed in panic, begging the 6th prince to save her, and her brother also screamed in horror, asking for help. Mo Yaolan looks at them and his system turns on, congratulating them for completing a side mission and activating a new mission, which is to urgently rescue Mujung Tung, which is under siege by monsters. As a reward for this, he will receive a cultivation card that will allow him to achieve the highest rank indicated on the card without the need to reboot. He thought about it and was surprised that Mujung Tung couldn't cope on her own, because she is very similar to her mother. He remembered the image of Mujung Tung confidently holding a sword behind her back. Meanwhile, Jialing continued her cultivation and sat on the floor of the cave, crossing her legs and closing her eyes, as Tung-er watched. The Kitsune demon spirit also watched the girl and told her that she was developing quite quickly, so she could go to the 2nd floor to get more valuable weapons. Jialing stopped cultivating and, opening her eyes, thought about the offer to go to the 2nd floor. As soon as she stood up, her husband came to her and called out to her, and the girl replied that he had come just in time, because the local energy was no longer good for her, and called him to the 2nd floor. Mo Yaolan was happy about this, thinking that now they could go their separate ways, and said that he knew a shortcut to the 2nd floor. He went forward and his wife and the Kitsune girl followed him. But his wife was wary and surprised that her husband seemed to know this place. Meanwhile, Mujung Tung was fighting a crowd of creepy monsters. She was bruised and her clothes were already torn, but she charged her sword with energy, ready to fight further. Jialing noticed her, recognizing her as the girl with whom she was competing for the attention of the 6th prince. Mujung Tung hit the monsters with her sword attacks, while Jialing, Mo Yaolan, and their Kitsune watched her from around the corner. Jialing asked her husband if this was the girl she was tested with. Meanwhile, the girl was already exhausted, not understanding why there were so many monsters, when suddenly the monsters she had killed resurrected and began to attack again, which plunged the girl into shock. The 6th princess noted that such a large number of monsters are summoned by the demon, and if it is not destroyed, then soon a crowd of monsters will begin to move towards them. She pointed at the demon, which looked like a small figurine with a red, evil smile and red eyes. At that moment, the monster hit the fighting girl with its spiked tentacle, and Mo Yaolan, shouting that it was too dangerous, took out the vehicle card from the system, which immediately lit up with a golden glow. He caught Mujung Tung and with his other hand he used the card on the monster, which was hit with golden energy. Mujung Tung was very happy about the appearance of the 6th prince and was surprised how he ended up in this place. His wife watched what was happening and became very angry. Seeing his angry wife, the guy immediately pushed Mujung Tung away, afraid that his wife's hatred might now increase, so he needed to quickly explain everything to her. He said they were going to go up to the 2nd floor and that was the only way to get there. Mujung Tung bowed to him and thanked him for saving her. The system congratulated the sixth prince for completing half of the task, writing that the next task is to help his companions and Mujung-tung increase their skills by 3 or more ranks, for which he can receive an enhancement card, which allows the owner to enhance his body without rebooting. The guy was upset, but thought that such a mission could not be too simple. The party noticed that the monsters were preparing to attack them again, which surprised Mujung-tung, who did not understand why the monsters were not running out. The sixth princess pointed at the demon, saying that he was to blame for the resurrection of monsters, and as soon as they destroyed her, all the monsters would disappear. She was ready to strike the demon, and her husband thought that resurrection would help create conditions for training and quickly increase the ranks of the girls, so that he could complete the mission faster than he thought. He took out the pills he had recently received from the system and handed them to the girls, but kept 10 of them for himself, telling them to fight until they were exhausted, and when they felt a lack of strength, they could drink the pills. The girls asked if this was something that would help them increase their cultivation base and said that they would believe the prince. They drew their swords and prepared to fight. Tung-er, Mujung-tung and Jia-ling took turns hitting the monsters, destroying one after another. A day later, Jia-ling and the kitsune realized that the pills were gone, and her husband encouraged her, saying that she could manage without them. The sixth princess stabbed the resurrecting demon with her sword and all the monsters burned in blue flames. Mujung-tung's strength increased from rank 5 fusion to rank 3 agitation. Tung-er upgraded her abilities from rank 1 golden core to rank 4 gold core, and Jia-ling promoted her rank from rank 2 agitation to rank 1 golden core. Jia-ling held her sword in her hands and was surprised that she broke through 3 ranks at once. The sixth prince addressed them, saying that they seemed to have come a long way. Mujung-tung asked the sixth prince to go further with him, and he replied that it would be better to ask his wife about this, thinking that his wife would refuse the girl. His wife frowned, but said she didn't mind, thinking that the assistants wouldn't be in the way. Mo Yaolan said that the girls were probably tired of fighting monsters and used the attribute of building a heavenly place for one night. He waved his hand and a luxurious 2-story building appeared in front of him, and he said that today they will stay here, and tomorrow they will go to the 2nd floor. His wife was surprised and asked where he got such a treasure, and the guy laughed awkwardly and said that his father had once given it to him. Mujung-tung embarrassedly took the guy's hand and begged the prince to consider accepting her, and Mo Yaolan looked at her with disgust and thought that she was harassing him. The system congratulated him on completing the 2nd part of the mission and gave him a body enhancement card. After that, the guy sat in the room on the bed in a cultivation position, and the system announced that its master had promoted to the 1st rank of the Yuanying period, so cultivation could be carried out. He was extremely happy that he had finally figured out the mission given to him, and had also advanced in his abilities and now felt full control over his body, which felt simply wonderful. Mo Yaolan got out of bed and hid his cultivation base in the system, thinking about how convenient it was, because now no one could resist him. At that moment the door to his room opened and someone came in. The sixth prince was surprised by his wife's arrival, asking why she was not resting at such a late hour. Jia-ling looked at the floor in embarrassment and said that today she has grown significantly in her strength, so she can strengthen herself even more. She blushed even more and looked at her husband, suggesting that they begin, and began to take off her dress. The girl threw her surprised husband onto the bed and sat on top of him, when suddenly 2 people entered the room and asked to wait. The husband and wife turned around in surprise as they entered and saw Tung-er and Mujung-tung. The girls were only in nighties and held each other's hands, embarrassed. They said that they also wanted to strengthen themselves and asked to join them. Jia-ling pressed her husband to the bed with her arms, and he, confused and shocked, tried to understand what the girls were doing, thinking that they had swallowed too many pills. However, the guy thought that the situation was not so bad and looked at the 3 embarrassed girls who surrounded him. He laughed awkwardly, surprised that all 3 girls came to him, and Mujung-tung said that there was nothing wrong with that, because it was their joint desire. However, the guy still didn't understand why they were rushing things so much, but it was too late, because the girls threw him onto the bed, and in the shadow on the wall one of them could be seen hanging over the sixth prince. A night later, all 3 girls stood in the bedroom, their faces glowing with pleasure, but Mo Yaolan lay exhausted in bed, not understanding why he was so tired. Jia-ling turned around and said that it was time to move to the 2nd floor, as she needed to get magical weapons. The 6th prince stood up in bed and was surprised, because he did not know about the presence of magical weapons in this place. He thought that the magical weapon was something like a ring with the kitsune spirit on his wife's hand. He stood up and told his wife that he would show the way. All 4 reached the entrance to the 2nd floor, which was a portal. The husband and wife entered first, followed by other girls. They came out of the portal and the guy asked if this was the second floor. They stood on the edge of a cliff in a cave with purple shimmering mist everywhere. The company moved along a path passing by 2 cliffs and reached another portal. After passing through the portal, Mo Yaolan asked what was wrong with this fog, and his wife said not to pay attention to it, since the magic weapon is more important than this and is somewhere nearby. A kitsune in a pink dress appeared from the fog and clung to the 6th prince, who blushed and was surprised that there were illusions in this place. He received a system alert that he was under the influence of hallucinations. He was already surrounded by 2 illusions in the form of kitsune girls, and blood began to flow from his nose, and he said that he was the only one who saw hallucinations, and turned to his wife, telling her to move on without paying attention to him. The girls turned to the 6th prince in confusion, not understanding what was happening to him. They all moved on and reached a platform decorated with statues, an arch with large columns and red drums. 3 kitsune sat in the middle of the platform and looked at some object glowing with blue energy. Suddenly the Xiaoling ring spoke, and the spirit in it said that those kitsune were his former followers, so in order to take the weapon, he would have to deal with them. The kitsune stood up and glared at Xiaoling, telling her to leave if she didn't want to take the risk. The object that the kitsune guarded resembled a small gold jewelry. Xiaoling looked at them, thinking that these were the followers. At the same time, on the 2nd floor, Ling Lai and Shiyu were heading towards the portal, where 3 guys who are Ling Lai's brothers were standing. One of Ling Lai's brothers bowed to him, rejoicing at his arrival. Ling Lai also bowed, saying that he had to be delayed a little on the way, and his wife asked what was happening. Then her husband explained to her that in fact the purpose of their journey to this place was not so surprising, and he just needed to get to the 3rd floor to receive the inheritance of his ancestors. However, it would be too dangerous there, so he asked his brothers to go with them for backup. The brothers said that they are not such careerists as Ling Lai, so they are not interested in the inheritance, and they only worry about their brother's well-being. One of the brothers added that he was very attracted to the lady who stood in front of him and would like to have a drink with her, which made Shiyu very confused. Meanwhile, on the 1st floor, Chu Zhenjian, with bruises and torn clothes, was running somewhere, and the beaten Chu Yang was walking behind her, asking her to stop. The sister turned around and told her brother to be patient, because they had almost reached the 2nd prince. The girl led her wounded brother, holding his hand, to the 2nd prince, surrounded by guards. Mo Yu motioned for the guards to move away and stepped forward, and Chu Zhenjian addressed him and joyfully ran towards the 2nd prince, stumbled and fell straight into his arms. The 2nd prince was embarrassed and in surprise named the names of those who came. Chu Yang fell to the ground, shouting that he was in great pain, and the 2nd prince took the girl by the hand and examined her wounds, asking what was wrong with them and where they got such wounds, adding that it was very dangerous here and one should not go too far. Chu Yang hit the floor with his fist, got angry and thought that he shouldn't tell the 2nd prince that it was their own fault for incurring the wrath of the 6th prince, since it was because of him that Chu Yang's wonderful life came to an end. He remembered the portrait of Mo Yaolan and became even more angry, thinking that he wanted the 6th prince dead, and that it would be better to blame him for everything. Chu Yang turned to the 2nd prince and said that he and his sister had been cultivating, but the 6th prince and his wife had brought monsters upon them, which had beaten him so badly. Chu Zhenjian supported her brother and said that Mo Yaolan is a real monster and asked the 2nd prince to help them, because her brother's lower body can no longer work as before, so they can't handle it on their own. Chu Yang sat on the ground and was shocked by the words about his uselessness. The news that the 6th prince was also in the underworld palace angered and surprised the 2nd prince, because he did not expect that his brother would be able to get here. He took Chu Zhenjian's hand and said that he would take care of everything and asked the guards to call someone who could take the brother and sister to the doctor. Mo Yu was filled with anger and he mentally turned to the 2nd prince, telling him not to consider himself the coolest, and as soon as he gets out of the underworld palace, he will report what happened to the emperor and empress. At this moment, Xiaoling, Mujung Tung and Tunger finished the battle with the kitsune guarding the magic weapons. They tied up the kitsune girls and hung them in the air, and they tried to break free, begging to be released. Mo Yaolan thought that with their current level, these girls were not their opponents, but it was very difficult for him to resist their beauty. His wife touched the magical weapon and began to float, with golden energy emanating from the weapon. This weapon turned out to be a beautiful gold pendant with a large red stone. The kitsune spirit from the Xiaoling ring told her that this item would help the girl increase the speed and level of purification, as well as the speed of healing wounds. The spirit allowed the girl to use the thing as much as she wanted, but in exchange for yin energy. The girl landed and looked with angry burning eyes at her husband, thinking about yin energy, since he was her only source of this energy. Mo Yaolan was scared, not understanding why such a strange aura was coming from the girl. After Xiaoling took the weapon, they moved on, entering the cave. They were walking through the cave, when suddenly the guy noticed that someone was moving and asked the girls to be more careful. They saw a flock of huge bats that looked at them angrily. The sixth prince thought that the demons on the second floor had become much stronger, and that this was his chance to test his strength at the current cultivation base. Xiaoling and Mujung Tung rushed into battle and began to beat the bats, and the guy said that he was leaving these monsters to them. He turned around and looked at the huge gargoyle that was sitting in the corner of the cave, glowing with red energy. The guy raised his hand and began to glow, deciding to see if he would be stronger than this monster.